Afternoon, folks. Only God can judge me. How many silly people out there do you think actually have that tattooed on their bodies? And how do you think that's going to work out for them after they die and they need to face God with that tattoo right on them? Only God can judge me. Oh, he's going to judge you. But I want to talk about this a little bit because I recently got on Twitter and boy, is it a mess. Didn't disappoint in that endeavor. But what struck me a lot in religious conversations, particularly Catholic Twitter, is there's all these people who are saying, "Oh, you're not charitable. You're not being charitable. I'm not going to listen to you." There's that, which is going to be its own video. But then there's this, "Only God can judge me. Don't judge. You can't judge," or whatever. And it appears to me, and I don't want to run the risk of being judgmental because only God can judge, but it appears to me that a lot of these people simply don't want to hear that things that they do are sinful. And calling out something as sinful, calling out scandal online is not the same as casting judgment on a person's eternal soul. It's not the same thing. It's actually a spiritual work of mercy is to admonish sinners and instruct the ignorant. And of course, you need to be careful about how you do that. You can't just hammer people over the head with stuff. But I think in a lot of ways, people who profess faith in Catholicism, who profess belief in the Catholic Church, what you're really doing when you say that is saying, I recognize the moral authority of the Catholic Church. That's kind of what you're saying when you say you're Catholic. And so when these people say, I'm Catholic, but I'm pro-choice. I'm Catholic, but I support sodomy. I'm Catholic, but, I like masturbation and porn and contraception and cocaine and hookers and, whatever else. What you're doing when you're saying, I'm Catholic, but, is you're making a contradiction. You're saying, I am at least claiming to accept the moral authority of the church, but not in these areas that are particularly, favorable to me. My personal sins, I don't want to acknowledge that, or my political beliefs, I'm not going to take authority from the church in that respect, which is ridiculous, and it is, I believe, a cause for scandal when people who maybe aren't very well versed in the teachings of the church say, "Oh, this person's Catholic," and they say it's okay, so it must be okay. That's scandal, and it is right to call it out. And then, of course, the people come back, "Oh, you're uncharitable. Oh, you can't judge me. Only God can judge me." And I was just listening to a talk by Father Chad Ripperger, and I found it interesting because he was talking about how the demonic can influence your perception of comments or actions that people make. And he says that if your perception is immediately negative, a lot of times you should just clear your mind, maybe say a prayer, ask your guardian angel to help illuminate your perspective, because the fact that the demonic can influence this perspective is part of their divide and conquer technique, where he used the example of like a spouse comes home and makes a comment, and then the other spouse just attributes all this malice or bad intent to it, and it causes a problem in the marriage. And he says that the demonic absolutely can influence that, and he particularly said that is why Christ said, "Do not judge," because when you judge, you cast judgment, you kind of solidify your perspective on another person. That's why, like in a court of law, a judge, the person who judges, they don't really cast judgment until the gavel comes down. That's it. It's done. The perspective, the verdict, it's done. And so, to a certain extent, we're not really capable of casting judgment because you can't really know what's on somebody's heart and mind. You can only go by their actions. And again, saying, "Hey, that was a sin. That was a sinful action. That was an evil thing to do." That's not the same as saying, "Hey, you're going to hell. I've cast judgment on you. That's all." So we're not really capable of that in some ways. But Christ did say, "Do not judge." And Father Ripperger says, he said that in particular because you're opening yourself up to being locked into that diabolically influenced perspective of other people when you cast judgment on them. So it's really not the same thing as saying, "Hey, that was wrong of you. That was a bad action." And all these people who go around, "Only God can judge me." First of all, I question whether they really understand the implications of what they're saying, because being judged by God really, there are a lot of saints who are terrified of their own personal judgments. Very holy people were terrified of facing God and making an account for their lives. And so for somebody to say, "Oh, only God can judge me, just, shut up, let me live my life," that says to me you don't really understand what you're saying. You don't really understand the implications of divine judgment. And also, you're not really calling out judgment on another person. And further than that, even, I would say that you are judging other people in a way when you say, "Hey, don't judge me, you're judging me." you're assuming that that's what they're actually doing, that they've cast this concrete moral judgment upon you, which one, they're not really capable of doing, especially over the internet, and two, you're really ascribing poor motives to them. You're ascribing malice to them when that may very well not be their intent, so you're guilty of the same thing. I would say also, Christ telling us not to judge isn't really for the sake of the people being judged, it's for your own sake. And based on what Father Ripperger was saying, like, it's bad for you personally because you're locking yourself into that demonically influenced false perspective. So it's, a lot of times people say, oh, don't judge me, like, you can't judge me, stop judging me or whatever. They're acting like this is a personal, spiritual microaggression, some sort of affront to them personally, causing them actual harm, which I would say ties into this whole culture of microaggression and all this crap like that. Like, they're acting like it's actually doing harm to them, but I think that the reason Christ said that was for your own sake. It's bad for you personally to judge other people in this way. And that perspective that Father Ripperger added, I think makes a lot of sense in that way. So it's just people playing the victim card, and it's even infiltrated our faith these days, which is a damn shame. So just stop all this talk about judgment and stuff. It's not judgment to call out sin and scandal, especially online when a lot of people are being exposed to this information. And for crying out loud, do not get the phrase "only God can judge me" tattooed on you. I can't think of anything more silly. And if you're unfortunate enough to end up in hell one day, then probably that tattoo is going to be a huge source of ridicule for you among the demonic. They're going to laugh at you. Hey, how'd that work out for you, buddy? Only God can judge you, huh? So, don't be silly. Don't judge, but understand what it actually means, and don't use that as an excuse to continue and to wallow in sin and darkness and spread scandal and error across the world. Take care.